Welcome to It's All Mental, a podcast from Everyturn Mental Health. We're here to talk about every high and low, no limits, just good conversation.
Good morning or afternoon. Hi, everybody.
Afternoon.
We're here. We're going to introduce ourselves first, and then we're going to do a bit of a podcast really around when worry becomes anxiety. So what's normal worry and anxiety, and when does it start to become an issue? So my name is Martha. I'm the Community and Partnerships Manager for Nottingham and Derby Talking Therapies service.
And I'm Ciara. I'm the service lead for Wirral Talking Therapies service.
Bro. So I'm going to go straight in there then, Ciara.
Yeah.
What is the difference between normal worry and anxiety and then clinical anxiety?
Yeah, so normal worry and anxiety would usually be a temporary response to a situation, a specific situation that's causing stress, and you might feel anxious or worried about that, usually with regards to like the uncertainty of the situation, worrying about something bad maybe happening because of that specific situation. Whereas an anxiety disorder, when it becomes a clinical disorder, it usually refers to those symptoms being persistent for a longer period of time, and also that they then start interfering with your daily functioning, being able to do your day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, so kind of stopping you doing things because of the worry, isn't it?
Exactly.
And maybe obviously there's lots of different types of anxiety disorders in there where we talk about that. I think it's such a complex one. It shows up in lots of different ways. Maybe kind of talk through a few of the ways that it can sort of show up, some of those different disorders.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, saying anxiety is a very broad term, isn't it? It's explaining like an experience that can be normal, but it's a spectrum right up to those disorders. And once it becomes more disordered, there can be different themes and different disorders when it comes to anxiety. So a common one might be generalised anxiety disorder, and that's usually someone who's experiencing, again, that excessive persistent worry about multiple areas of their life, lots of different themes. And then you might have social anxiety, which again, what it says on the tin, it's having that anxiety experience, worry experience, specifically with regards to social situations and how you feel about yourself, how you think you look, and how you think you're performing in social situations. You've also got health anxiety. So again, what it says on the tin, it's that experience, but with regards to your health, usually that's defined by someone having worries about usually a specific disease or condition that they're worried that they might have, that they may or may not be experiencing symptoms related to, but yet they're having this anxiety experience that's excessive and consistent. But in terms of normal anxiety, of course, there's uncertainty everywhere in the world. So there's lots of situations that might trigger a feeling of uncertainty that might come along with a worry that's normal, that doesn't necessarily stop us from going to work or picking the kids up and taking care of ourselves. It might be uncomfortable still, and you might be very aware of it, but it's not got to that kind of top end disorder bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of not affecting your day-to-day existence, isn't it? And I think I did a podcast before for Everyturn around my own experience of anxiety and sort of struggling since I was like 15 years old with different forms. And what I found was that the anxiety, the feelings around it are the same, but it can come and go in different forms as well. So you can get kind of an OCD presentation with it, and then maybe it'll go, and then you kind of get another, focus on your health for a period of time. And it's that where you can continuously worrying about that specific thing. But I think a lot of people do have generalised anxiety where there's so many things to worry about. And it just starts to, I suppose it's that line between stress, anxiety, worry, a lot of people, there's a lot to worry about, isn't there? In this day and age.
Yeah, of course there is. And you've touched on a really good point there in that often, so I'm a CBT therapist, and in CBT, some of the protocols that we use for anxiety is looking at our intolerance of uncertainty. And I think when you look at a lot of the anxiety disorders, that is a thread that's through all of them, is that often because of maybe the way you've been raised or genetics or life experiences, all of which wouldn't be anyone's fault, it just happens. you might have developed an intolerance of uncertainty, finding that really difficult to tolerate that. And like you said, that then might manifest itself in different ways. It might look like, some compulsions, or it might look like a worry about health, but that through line through all of it
that
is
what if,
some
not
difficulty.
knowing.
I find it
Yeah.
very difficult to not know something.
Mm.
So it might get to the point where someone doesn't necessarily fit the box perfectly for a diagnosed disorder, but yet we're seeing that through line in that person's life that's making it so that on that spectrum of anxiety, they do kind of creep up there quite a bit, and it can manifest itself in different ways.
Yeah. I suppose another thought is kind of, the symptoms of it then. So obviously you get the natural symptoms. How does anxiety show up kind of differently in the body, in the mind, and when should people be concerned, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, in the body, it's those physiological symptoms, and we talk about that fight flight response or fight flight freeze response. People will probably familiar with that. But you're looking at kind of increased heart rate, sometimes labored breathing or shallow breathing. You might get pins and needles. You might find that you have temperature changes, feel a bit sweaty or clammy, dry mouth, headaches, feel a little bit dizzy, anything that's related to the fight flight response. Because with an anxiety disorder, it's usually someone is fearful of something. They might be fearful of a what if, or they're fearful of a very, very specific situation. So the physical symptoms are that fear response. And, if right at the bottom of the spectrum where we might have normal anxiety, it might just be one or two of those symptoms and they might be mild, right through to the top end of the spectrum where it could be quite debilitating. It could stop someone from being able to, as you said, do your day-to-day activities, go out and about. And sometimes in the case of panic disorder, they can interpret those symptoms as danger and think that their body is in danger and something really serious is happening to them. So physically, it can be very demanding. And then the impact of that is it impacts your energy levels. You can experience fatigue, impact on sleep, impact on appetite and concentration. So, unfortunately, there's a wealth of physical.
A huge amount, isn't it? And I went on this thing recently, and it looked at the nervous system, and it showed the nervous system within the body, and and you just can't believe how connected it is to every single part of your body. Which, when the nervous system is constantly active, and I saw an analogy about it. It's like turned on. So once you're stressed a lot of the time, you have that cortisol, which is the stress response, the adrenaline going through your body all the time. The physical symptoms of that can be anything. They can be, and I remember when I first started getting anxiety, even to this day, I'm still surprised at some of the symptoms that it kind of manifests, because it can be so varied. It can be anything from the headaches to something in your toe to stomach to back to pains, and it's a lot of people obviously aren't sometimes aware that it's anxiety because they may be used to living in that high stress response. So it's quite debilitating, really.
It is like muscle tension is a really common symptom of generalized anxiety disorder and anxiety disorder. So some people might think that it's something else, especially if they've got another condition that they're dealing with. They might not realize, as you said, that the symptom is actually being caused by anxiety.
And so we talked about kind of stress and life events. So kind of what role does stress and life events play when tipping worry into anxiety?
Well, massively. I mean, if we think about normal worry, normal anxiety, then what we're saying is they're usually triggered by specific situations. So situations that come with uncertainty. I mean, sometimes even positive situations come with uncertainty, but usually we'll feel worried or anxious about situations where there's a possible negative. So, that could be anything. It could be work stress, it could be family stress, money, relationships, sometimes even in relationships, worrying that you've upset your friend, you've said something that you shouldn't have said. These are all normal experiences, normal human experiences. Whereas with disorders, again, the same thing could happen. It could be that there's a situation that triggers a more severe response or a more disordered response. But as I said before, sometimes we'll meet people who experience anxiety disorders, and there isn't necessarily anything really obvious. There's some research around a genetic predisposition that some people just might be slightly more anxious than others. Some people might have had a significant life event that's then made them, like we talk about, sometimes some people have an increased sense of threat. So if some people have been through something really challenging in their early life, they might have molded into someone who's just very aware of danger. So again, they could go into their adult life and there might not be anything majorly situation specific, but they're just on that spectrum at higher
more
level.
Prone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, more prone. And they say, I think to correct me if I'm wrong, they're talking about the amygdala and the development of the amygdala, which is the part of the body that regulates stress hormone. And if you have a lot of things in your childhood where that's heightened or put on high alert, it doesn't develop in the same way. I don't know if that's you're the therapist, but I did read that. So often it can be things that you don't even know about. And another thing that I really found interesting is hormones as well. So, a lot of women do struggle with anxiety, specifically certain times of the month, and then especially in menopause. So women are kind of getting that massive amount of anxiety during that time because of hormonal changes that are going on in the body. So like you say, it can be lots and lots of different things. So kind of how can people manage it? Obviously there's lots of different ways, but what are some healthy ways to manage everyday worry before it turns into anxiety? So what do people kind of spot, and what can they do about it?
Well, I think, as we talk about in terms of the symptoms, just some awareness of what's happening for you, whether that's in your body or in your mind. If you feel that you're experiencing something that's out of the ordinary for you, is to pay a little bit of attention to it. What's going on there? What are my symptoms? When did that start? Just be mindful of it. But generally, particularly in CBT, what we'd encourage people to do is try to initially categorize their worry. Is this something that I can do something about? For example, you might have a financial worry because there is a legitimate practical problem that's about to happen that you can take part in to resolve the problem. So is this something that I can contribute to? Is this something that I can help resolve? If it's not, if it's completely hypothetical, even if it's possible, hypothetical worries are absolutely possible. But if you can't contribute to it, you can't control it in that situation, then noticing that and recognizing that that's something that putting your energy into is not going to be helpful, but also not trying to avoid thinking of it, because there's a difference between accepting that you can't do something about something to completely trying to avoid thinking about it, because then you're not building that tolerance to the uncertainty. So just recognizing this isn't something I can do something about, so therefore I need to turn to things that will distract me in a healthy way, whether that's mindful breathing or exercise or speaking to friends, doing things that make you feel healthy and well, whilst also acknowledging I'm having this anxiety, I'm having this worry, but I've already thought about it. There's nothing I can do about it. So I have to tolerate it. And in order to tolerate it, I'm going to do things that feel healthy for me and distract me in a positive way.
Yeah, no, that's really useful. And when should somebody consider sort of therapy or medication for their anxiety?
I think it's exactly like we said at the beginning, in terms of if it starts impacting your daily functioning, it starts becoming persistent, consistent, and it's getting severe to the point of interrupting your day-to-day life, then I think it's worth talking about and looking at your options, whether that's medication or, therapeutic interventions. Anything that causes dysfunction, it is something that, we should talk about and look at options.
Yeah, and people deserve to kind of feel well, don't they?
Yeah,
They need to find,
well.
everyone does. And I think sometimes we're kind of brought up in a way that's, to put up with things or to keep it inside and to not access stuff. And it's like, well, actually, we all deserve to live happily and in the best way we can. I think anxiety is one of those things that, is so common, like so many people have it, but it's just not spoken about in the same way. But people do talk about worry and stress, but then when it gets to the anxiety part, we kind of don't really go.
Well, they're all
that
part
way,
of the same family, aren't they?
Yeah, Yeah, but it's like a badge of honor to be stressed. Like, I think this day, it's
Yeah,
like you go,
that's true.
oh, I'm so stressed. Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, I'm so, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing life. I'm proud of it. And then, but we don't talk about how that can really, really spiral and make you really poorly. And I having anxiety a lot of my life, I know it really can make you very
Yeah.
poorly, and the way you think different, and the way your body is. So it is really important for people to get that support when they need it.
Yeah.
Um, what gives you hope in how we're learning about anxiety now, or how we're learning to treat about it? Is this you think we're more open to discussing it these days? Do you think there's more help around it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you'd agree. I think there's definitely more conversation about it, and that is really positive. I think, working on the stigma around mental health and around anxiety has made a difference. I think there's a long way to go, but it has made a difference. I think what my hopes for is the fact that we're having this conversation, because I think where there's still a lot of learning um, to do is that differentiation between what is a normal human experience versus what is a disorder. Because what we don't want to do necessarily is pathologize everything. We are humans, we are going to have negative experiences, and we don't want anyone to feel that something is wrong because they're having a negative emotion or anxiety or stress. And like you said, you just made a really interesting point there about the words that we use to describe something, even though really we're describing the same thing, just
Mm.
completely changes how people view it. So I think educating ourselves more on when something becomes disordered, and actually normalizing experiences that aren't disordered, they're just part of the normal human experience. So I think the fact that we're having this conversation is really positive, and the more people talk about it, I think the more educated people will be.
It's better. And I think once you can see it for what it is, that's part of the journey, that's part of the recovery. So, when I first started getting anxiety at 15 years old, I didn't know what was
Yeah,
happening to my body. I didn't understand it. So that makes it 10 times worse, because you're really thinking, what is going on? Something really, really life-threatening or really terrible is happening. But now I can understand this is anxiety. It can't hurt me. It's just uncomfortable. Then that helps, and that starts that discussion. So I think the more people are aware of what it looks like and how it
yeah,
how it can affect you, it's much better.
that's it.
So I suppose, like, kind of ending the sort of podcast, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who worries or might think they're too anxious? What would that be?
Um, I mean, my first instinct would be to say anxiety is normal. Like you said, normalizing it, telling them that actually what they're experiencing is probably not unique, that actually some of what they're experiencing might be normal for humans, and not to be frightened of it, but to talk about it. So I think my first piece of advice would be tell us what you're experiencing, because there might be someone else in the room, or there might be something online where you can see, oh, this person is experiencing that as well. And actually, maybe I do need to get some help, or actually, maybe that's normal within the normal realms of anxiety. So I think it's about anxiety, worry, fear. It all sits in, as you said, in that amygdala, that fear center. So talking about it shines a light on it, and it removes some of that power. Um, because sometimes people then can feel anxious about being anxious, worried about worrying. So I think,
Mm.
yeah, my first piece of advice would be just to talk about it, get it out in the open, as you said, name it, acknowledge it, and that's the starting point for improving it.
Yeah. And what's a small practice listeners can start today to feel calmer is one of the questions. I thought what I've always found really useful is kind of that breathing and grounding. And I think that's really useful when you're feeling stressed. And the way that I look at it is like treating it kindly. So you've got a fear center that sometimes I see as a little bit separate to me. So it's like when I can feel it starting, I think it's okay. It's okay. It's like I'm
That's
talking to it as
nice.
a
Yeah,
different
like
thing.
compassionate talk. Yeah.
Breathe, breathe, get my feet on the ground, concentrate on where I am, that kind of thing. And that's one of the practices that I would encourage people to do, quite kind of, if they're starting to do it regularly throughout the day, to calm your nervous system down, because the more we can calm it down, the less on edge it is, and the more you can kind of get rid of the anxiety as well. That's what I would say. What about you? What's a small practice that people can do to feel calmer? in life, starting
It's
today?
probably similar. I mean, you mentioned there about grounding, so it's that 5 ways. Name 5 things that you can see. I forget that. Let me Google it now. The exact.
Or here.
Is it 4 here?
Or here.
What's here?
Yeah. 3
So 3 touch.
touch, 2 smell, 1 taste.
That's it. So yeah, 5 see, 4 hear, 3 touch, 2 smell. Did you say? And what
Yeah.
was the last one?
Taste.
Taste. That's it. So yeah, that's a really popular grounding technique. What I would say with that is don't rush through it. The whole point of it is to pay attention to your surroundings and to actually sit and consider. Because actually, sitting in this room now, if I was to think of 4 things that I could hear, I'd struggle. I'm in a quiet room, so the purpose of it is to take some time to pay attention to your environment and to be present. So yeah, I think that would be a small practice. If you're starting to feel overwhelmed, if you're starting to feel that your worry is, you're struggling to distract from your worry, or whatever physical sensations are causing discomfort, that's a really helpful way to bring you back into the present.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ciara. And I suppose we need to just add as a little ending that, if people are struggling, then there is support out there, and they can access different types of therapy through talking therapies in their area, but also to go and see the GP if they feel that they may need something else or medication.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to It's All Mental, a podcast from Everyturn Mental Health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to follow, rate and share. See you next time.